Night fell over the quiet house. Lynn sat on her bed, the walls breathing with silence. Downstairs, her parents laughed softly over wine. Upstairs, her brother played his guitar, carefree and loud. The melody felt like mockery. She stared at the ceiling until the sound blurred. Every tick of the clock echoed inside her ribs. She reached for her phone, scrolling through old messages. Most were reminders, tasks, expectations. Only one name felt human. Aunt Mai. Her mother's older sister, the family's black sheep. She lived in Dalat, far away, far free. They said she failed at life. But Lynn remembered her warm hugs, her loud laugh. Her finger hovered over the call button. Her chest ached with fear and need. She pressed call. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a rough, sleepy voice. Lynn, what's wrong? Her words came out in pieces. They won't pay for it. They're letting me die. Silence. Then firm, steady breathing on the other end. Pack your things, I'm coming. The certainty in her aunt's voice cracked something open. Lynn looked around the room one last time. The trophies, the certificates, all meaningless now. She opened her drawer, took a small envelope of money. $85 from a forgotten birthday. It would have to be enough. She packed 3 shirts, her medical file, a photograph. Each item felt like a piece of her breaking away. Outside, the wind brushed the window pane like a whisper. At 1 a.m., she slipped from bed. The stairs creaked softly beneath her bare feet. She knew which step to avoid. She had learned that long ago. The living room glowed faintly from the streetlights. Family portraits stared from the walls. Her parents smiling. Her brother in the center. She, always a little to the side. She left the house key on the table. Her mother's favorite crystal pendant beside it. Some gifts were too heavy to carry. She stepped outside into the cold. The night smelled of rain and freedom. At 2 in the morning, the bus station buzzed faintly. A few strangers dozed in plastic chairs. Lynn sat with her backpack clutched tight. She tried not to think, only to breathe. Then headlights cut through the dark. A small silver car pulled up, old but alive. Aunt Mai stepped out, hair tied messily, eyes fierce. Without a word, she wrapped Lynn in her arms. The hug smelled of coffee and exhaustion. It also smelled like safety. They got in the car. The city lights faded behind them. Lynn watched the darkness roll past the window. Her aunt drove fast, jaw set, eyes forward. Whatever they did, she said, you're mine now. Lynn looked down at her shaking hands. For the first time that night, she didn't feel small. She was terrified, yes. But underneath the fear, something new began to grow. Something that felt a little like hope. The car stopped in front of a narrow building. The smell of food drifted from the restaurant below. Aunt Mai led Lynn up the stairs, one careful step at a time. The apartment was small, cluttered but warm. A couch, a single bed, a tiny kitchen. This is home for now, her aunt said softly. Lynn nodded, unable to speak. Her body felt hollow, her mind buzzing. Mai handed her a blanket and a cup of tea. Rest, tomorrow we plan. Lynn fell asleep to the hum of traffic outside. When she woke, the sun filled the room. Her aunt sat at the table, papers spread everywhere. Bills, prescriptions, hospital forms. Mai looked up and smiled. I called a doctor friend. We'll start small. Lynn's throat tightened. You can't afford this. Mai shrugged. I sold the car. It's just metal, you're not. Tears burned behind Lynn's eyes. No one had ever said something like that to her. They spent the day visiting clinics. Cheap ones, overworked doctors, but still hope. Lynn held onto that word like oxygen. At night, she helped Mai cook rice and soup. The kitchen filled with laughter between coughs. For a moment, the fear loosened its grip. Neighbors began to notice. Mrs. Land from next door brought soup. A student upstairs offered to help translate forms. People Lynn had never met showed up with kindness. She learned that care didn't always come with blood ties. The treatments began. Needles, nausea, long hours of trembling. I sat beside her, never leaving. She worked double shifts at the accounting firm. Came home, cooked, cleaned, and stayed awake for Lynn. When Lynn vomited, I held her hair back. When she cried, I told jokes until she laughed again. Each day was a battle between pain and persistence. Each night ended with quiet gratitude. Lynn started writing in a notebook. Not about sickness, but about survival. She wrote down every small victory. One less hour of pain. One smile that didn't feel forced. Her aunt read it secretly and added her own notes. Proud of you today. Lynn found it the next morning and smiled. Weeks passed. Her hair thinned, her skin turned pale, but her spirit grew. Strangers brought food, money, even flowers. The community that had nothing gave her everything. One evening, Lynn asked, "Why do they help us?" I answered, "Because they remember what it's like to need help." That night, Lynn lay awake, watching city lights flicker. She thought of her parents' mansion, silent and cold. Then she looked around the small room, full of warmth and noise. For the first time since the diagnosis, she didn't feel alone. Pain still lived in her body, but love had moved in beside it. And somehow, that made survival possible. The knock came on a quiet afternoon. Lynn was sorting medicine on the table. Her aunt was at work, the apartment silent except for the clock. When she opened the door, her parents stood there. Her father in a pressed shirt, her mother clutching a pearl necklace. "Lynn," her mother said softly, "you look unwell." Lynn smiled faintly. That's what happens when you stop paying for someone's life. Her father frowned. Be reasonable. This emotional act has gone far enough." She stepped aside, letting them in. The small apartment suddenly felt too full. Her mother's eyes scanned the space with quiet judgment. Her father adjusted his tie, as if this were a meeting. "You've embarrassed us," he said. "Do you realize what people are saying?" Lynn leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "I realize you were willing to let me die for a university bill." Her mother gasped, offended by the tone, not the truth. "Don't dramatize, darling. We did what was practical." Lynn reached for a folder on the table. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, bank statements. She placed them down, one by one. "These are your words. These are your numbers." Her father's eyes narrowed. "Where did you get these?" "I kept everything," she said quietly. "Every calculation, every message where my life was an expense." The room froze. Even the clock seemed to hesitate between ticks. Her mother sank into the chair, pale and trembling. "You can't mean to." "To tell people," Lynn interrupted. "I don't have to. The truth speaks for itself." She picked up her phone, opened her email. Her hands didn't shake anymore. A message draft glowed on the screen. To Dr. Tran. Subject, concerning the Rivers family education firm. Attached were all the documents. Her father stepped forward, voice low. "Don't you dare ruin us." She looked up, meeting his eyes. "You ruined yourselves the moment you chose reputation over life." Her thumb hovered over the screen. She pressed send. Silence. Her parents stared, horror flickering behind composure. Then her father muttered, "You'll regret this." She smiled, tired but certain. "No, I already regretted staying quiet." They left without another word. The door clicked shut, leaving the air heavy and still. Lynn sat down, breathing deeply. Outside, the city lights began to glow. When Aunt Mai returned, she found Lynn calm, almost peaceful. "They came," Lynn said. Mai nodded, understanding without asking. "You told them." "I showed them." Mai placed a hand on her shoulder. "Truth has sharp edges, but it cuts clean." Lynn looked at the sent email, still glowing on the screen. For the first time, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a survivor, drawing her own lines. That night, she slept without nightmares. And the ticking clock sounded less like an ending, and more like the beginning of something finally true. Weeks passed after the email was sent. No replies came, only silence that felt heavy but alive. Then one morning, Aunt Mai showed Lynn a news article. The education firm her parents owned had vanished online. Their names disappeared from directories and partner lists. Dr. Tran launched a new program without them. Lynn stared at the screen, her chest tight with disbelief. It wasn't revenge, it was consequence. Her parents' empire of polish had cracked quietly. No press release, no drama, just absence. Aunt Mai brewed coffee and sat beside her. "You didn't destroy them," she said gently. "They destroyed themselves when they forgot what mattered." Lynn nodded, unsure if she felt joy or sadness. Mostly, she felt light. Her strength returned slowly with each treatment. The nausea came and went, but she could walk again. She helped Mai with chores, folded laundry, made soup. Small things that felt like victories. One afternoon, Mrs. Land knocked with a gift. A basket of fruit and a note that said "for courage." Lynn smiled until tears blurred her vision. People who owed her nothing gave her everything. She began to dream again. Not of hospitals or invoices, but of building something new. Aunt Mai listened as she spoke her thoughts aloud. A place for kids who feel forgotten, like I did. Mai's eyes softened. "Then we'll start here, 1 table, 2 chairs." They cleared the living room that night. A whiteboard on the wall, old textbooks stacked neatly. The first student came a week later. A shy girl failing math but desperate to try. Lynn taught her how to breathe before solving problems. How to believe effort mattered more than perfection. By the end of the month, 5 students came. Word spread in whispers and gratitude. The lessons weren't just about algebra or essays. They were about worth. Each success felt like another heartbeat restarting. The small apartment filled with laughter and pencils scratching. Aunt Mai joked that it sounded like music. Lynn started sleeping through the night again. The scars on her chest ached, but they reminded her she lived. She sent no messages to her parents. She didn't need their acknowledgement anymore. Her recovery became quiet, steady, her own. The community grew around her like roots. People dropped off snacks, notebooks, donations. Someone painted a sign that read, "Little Lantern Learning." When the first term ended, they celebrated with noodles and tea. Lynn looked at her students, their eyes bright with pride. She whispered to herself, "We did it." The city outside buzzed with ordinary life. Inside, something extraordinary was happening. Lynn had rebuilt from ashes without rage, only purpose. The truth had burned everything false away. What remained was real, raw, and beautifully alive. The call came late in the evening. The classroom was empty, notebooks stacked neatly on the shelf. Lynn's phone buzzed against the table, showing a familiar name. She hesitated before answering. "Hello." A quiet breath on the other end. "It's me, Nam." Her brother's voice cracked, unsteady, older somehow. "I just found out everything, about the money, about you." Lynn said nothing. She could hear his guilt in the silence between words. "They lied to me," he continued. "They said you were fine. They said you refused treatment." Her throat tightened, but her voice stayed calm. "I didn't refuse. They refused me." Nam exhaled, a sound heavy with shame. "I would give it all back if I could." "You can't," Lynn said softly. "But you can learn from it." He paused, then whispered, "I dropped out of Princeton." The words hung in the air like fragile glass. "I'm transferring to state. It's cheaper. I'll work part-time." Lynn leaned back, closing her eyes. For the first time, his choices sounded like his own. "You don't have to prove anything to me," she said. He laughed bitterly. "No, I do, because they used me to destroy you." They didn't destroy me, she replied. They just showed me who I really am. The line went quiet for a long moment. Then Nam said, I want to see you. Not yet, Lin answered. Finish what you started. Build something for yourself. Her words shook, but they were true. He agreed, voice breaking again. I'm sorry, Lin. I was blind. Now you can see, she whispered and ended the call. She sat in silence, the sound of rain outside steady and calm. Aunt Mai entered with 2 cups of tea. Was that him? Lin nodded, her eyes tired but warm. He's trying. Mai smiled faintly. Sometimes trying is the first act of redemption. They drank in silence, the world softening around them. Later that night, Lin pulled out an old photo album. One page held a picture of her and Nam as children. 2 kids laughing under summer rain. She traced the photo with her fingertip. I hope he finds his light, she murmured. Days passed, and life moved forward. The learning center grew busier, full of chatter and hope. Lin poured her energy into her students. Each face reminded her that worth could be taught. Not through grades, but through belief. Sometimes, she caught herself thinking of Nam. Not with anger anymore, but with quiet understanding. She knew healing took time and distance. Forgiveness wasn't a door you opened once. It was a path you walked every day. When the sunset hit the window that evening, Lin smiled to herself, a small, honest smile. She had lost a family once. But maybe, slowly, she was gaining one back. Not through blood, but through change, truth, and love. 3 years passed like chapters quietly turning. The little classroom became a full center with bright windows. Children filled the space with laughter and pencils tapping. Lin stood by the board, her hair grown long again. Her strength returned, steady and calm. She no longer counted days by pain, but by progress. One morning, Aunt Mai waved a newspaper in excitement. They want to feature us, she said. Little Lantern Learning has changed lives. Lin laughed, humbled by the thought. She never planned for fame, only survival. Now survival had become purpose. Students who once whispered, I Ka now taught others. Each success felt like another heartbeat restored. The wall filled with drawings, certificates, thank you notes. Every paper carried a story of hope rewritten. Then one afternoon, the doorbell rang. Lin turned and froze. Her parents stood there, smaller, older, fragile. Her mother's pearls were gone, her father's suit replaced by plain clothes. Lin, her father said softly, we've lost everything. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. We were wrong, terribly wrong. Lin kept her voice steady. This is a learning center. If you're here for lessons, we teach truth. Her mother's lips trembled. We just wanted to see you, to tell you we're sorry. She nodded, expression unreadable. I hope you find peace, but forgiveness isn't owed, it's earned. Her father reached for her hand. She stepped back gently. You once decided I wasn't worth saving. I've learned to live with that. The silence stretched, soft but final. Children's laughter echoed from the next room. Lin turned toward it, her world still moving forward. Her parents left quietly, footsteps fading down the hall. Aunt Mai appeared beside her, eyes full of knowing. You okay? Lin exhaled slowly. Yes, for the first time I truly am. They watched the children solving problems together. Their heads bent close over notebooks. Outside, the sunlight spilled across the window. Lin picked up a gold star sticker and placed it on the chart. Not for grades, but for courage. Each star meant someone believed again. She believed too. Later that year, they moved into a larger space near the lake. Donors offered grants, volunteers came to help. Lin named one room, the beginning, because every second chance started there. Sometimes she still dreamed of the night she left home. But now the dream ended differently. Instead of running, she stood tall in the doorway. Behind her, light spilled outward. The past no longer haunted her. It bowed quietly and left. One evening, as the sun dipped low, a student handed her a drawing of a lantern glowing in the dark. Under it, the child had written, "Because you believed." Lynn smiled, eyes warm, heart steady. She realized she no longer needed revenge. She already had everything she once begged for. A purpose, a family, and a life that proved she was worth saving. Evening settled gently over the lake. The windows of the center glowed with soft yellow light. Lynn stood on the porch, a cup of tea warming her hands. Inside, Aunt Mai laughed with the students finishing homework. The sound drifted through the open door, calm and real. 5 years had passed since that night of escape. The scar on her chest had faded, but its lesson remained bright. She had built something no money could buy. A place where no one's worth was measured by cost. A home made of kindness and second chances. Her phone buzzed with a message from Nam. "Got my teaching job. Hope to visit soon." She smiled and typed back, "Keep helping others. That's enough." The wind stirred the trees, carrying children's laughter outside. She looked up at the moon, its reflection trembling on the water. Once, she had been broken by calculation and betrayal. Now she lived by choice and love. Some called it revenge, but she knew better. This was justice, the quiet kind that heals instead of burns. She turned toward the light, whispering to herself, "I am exactly where I'm meant to be."